Hello and welcome to the video where I'll be presenting you with an overview of the novel The Palace of Illusions by Chitra Banerjee. Let me cut to the chase straight away. I'm not going to round about a lot because we do not have enough logistics. Probably not many of you would be able to download if I'm going to talk about and go on for an 1 hour lecture, right? So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to straight away deal with whatever that is necessary in interpreting the novel, right? So when I say interpret, you should understand that this is kind of my interpretation, and this is generally considered to be the interpretation. But then you are also welcome to do or give your own interpretation to it. So the first and foremost interpretation that is given to the Palace of Illusions is in a feminist perspective, right? So what can we look at if at all we are looking at the Palace of Illusions as a feminist novel? Is that in the feminist perspective, why do you think retelling is necessary? You might have by now found out that that is exactly the point of the novel itself, The Palace of Illusions by Chitra Banerjee. Retelling, right? Retelling of the epic Mahabharata, right? Which was said to be written by Vyasa. But then we have a retelling of the Mahabharata, the epic, by Chitra Banerjee. We do not have a complete retelling, right? But then we will get on with it a little later. I'll definitely talk to you about that. Right. So, why do you think retelling is necessary after reading the novel? I'm sure all of you would have read the novel, right? So, why is it necessary? Because feminism, the ideology itself, uh, stands out and makes a point that not all women have been given the opportunity to give their side of the story, right? So, we do know that things have changed in the recent times, but then maybe take the time of Mahabharata, right? And that's what we are going to do, right? We are going to look at whether Draupadi had the chance to give her side of the story, and obviously that is what is Chitra Banerjee trying to do here. And she is trying to refute the idea that during the time of Mahabharata, see, this is when I say during the time of Mahabharata, I would like to clarify certain things. It is half history, half myth. All right. So we do not have we have if you go to Uttar Pradesh, if you go to Punjab, you go to Haryana, you find places like Kurukshetra, so on and so forth, right? But then yes, so you'll have to believe in it, and then you'll have to also look at it as an imaginary tale, also, right? It's a mythological tale, also. All right. So when I say Mahabharata, during the times of Mahabharata, you'll have to think about it as half history, right? That's the point I would like to reiterate right now, right? So during the time of Mahabharata, Chitra Banerjee, by writing this novel, she would like to declaim that women were not given proper voice, right? So what they were thinking about, and the voice, so many things they could make about. All right. So in the feminist perspective, we will have to look at this particular retelling as an opportunity that is given to Draupadi to make her own side of the story. In the novel, The Palace of Illusions, we have Chitra Banerjee taking the side of Draupadi, aka Panchali, daughter of King Draupad, right? So you know the branched out story of King Draupad. King Draupad is the ruler of the empire of Panchalam, right? Panchal, right? And so you have a different way of pronouncing it in the south and in the north, right? Panchal, right? So it's Duchadanan in Tamil or in the South Indian languages, and it Dushasena in North Indian languages. So you know the difference. I'll then and there, let you know what we are kind of talking about. All right. So yes, we have Chitra Banerjee taking the side of Draupadi, right? Now, who's Draupadi? Daughter of King Draupad, who is the ruler of Panchal, right? Now, how do we come across King Draupadi and Panjali? It is the fact that from the story that uh, Sikandi, in her second birth, becomes the daughter of King Draupad, right? her first birth is Ambai, who wants to avenge Bhishma, right? So that's how the story goes. If at all you have a full understanding of Mahabharata. So you have Sikandi, right? So Sikandi, being a girl, right, being a woman, she is not able to even take care of, let's say that when the Pandavas and the Kauravas in the initial stage they come and try to take over Panchal, they are not able to do that. I mean, Sikandi and King Draupad are not able to defend their own rule. So you get Panchal empire, getting divided between Aswatthama, who's made the king later, and then King Drupad now is living his life as a lost king, right? So his King Drupad's fury turns towards Drona, who was the teacher of Kauravas and the Pandavas, right? And that is why now he wants to take revenge over Drona, who also had insulted him. I mean, it actually goes both ways, right? Drona thinks Drupad had insulted him, and Draupad thinks Drona had insulted him, right? So it goes on a two-edged sword like thing, right? So you see King Drupad later in his life uh, making a yaha, right? In which he asks for a male heir because he is utterly convinced that Sikandi will not kill Bhishma, will not be the rightful heir he is looking for, right? Obviously, a woman, right? She cannot be the rightful heir. So he thinks that maybe I could do a yaga, ask for a male heir, right? So that is exactly what he does. But then he gets an extra offer where the one the first person who steps out of the yaga is Drishtadyuman, right? So you have him in the novel also as a character, right? Now I'm trying to give you a branched out story of Mahabharata. So you have Drishtadyuman who walks out of the fire, right? Now King Drupad is very happy, but then few moments later, you also find that Draupadi also steps out of the fire, and there is a drama over there, and King Drupad does not want Draupadi as his daughter, but then he is forced to have her. So one thing lead to another. So you could see that Chitra Banerjee Devakaruni is trying to portray the kind of situation we could still kind of observe in India, right? So a male hair is always wanted, whereas a woman child, a girl child is not wanted, right? So you see that manifestation through King Drupa, right? Now, looking at the retelling of the epic itself, we do not find a complete retelling of the epic, which I had mentioned before, right? Mahabharata is not completely, retold to you. There are other versions, if at all or you hear Mahabharata from different people, you hear different sides of the stories, but majorly there is a strand, right? The strand that you would know, right? Starting with King Shantanu and ending with the Kurukshetra war, right? So we do not find a complete retelling of the epic Mahabharata, but Chitra Banerjee attempts to give voice to Draupadi in events previously where she had been forbidden or hidden from existence, right? So you should know that even in the times of Mahabharata, right, or even you could give it an modern interpretation as well. You would know that women are not allowed to talk, women are not allowed to raise their voice, right? You have the stereotypes, you have the stigma related to the biological construct or the feminine construct of a woman, right? So these are the things that Draupadi as a character she would like to go against, right? So these are the things we are going to look at, and then what I'm going to try with it is that uh, you see Chitra Banerjee trying not to give you a complete retelling of the epic is that maybe, right? Maybe Chitra Banerjee is able to make it more or less like a branched out story of the epic. First thing. Second thing, maybe she felt that it would become a meta fiction, right? Why metafiction? It would become a fiction about a fiction, right? Now she did not want that to happen, and why is that Chitra Banerjee did not want that to happen? Is because that she wanted to make this side of the story, this branched out story of Draupadi and the kind of suffering she goes through as a uh, any other branch root story that comes out of Mahabharata, but not as a separate fictional work, right? So you understand the term fictional, right? So you understand the term, and then you understand the derivatives of the term fictional. So if it becomes fictional, it would become like any other story. And I think personally that maybe Chitra Banerjee did not want uh, the novel, The Palace of Illusions, to be converted into a metafiction. So, and that is why she does not attempt to change many of the events that happen in Mahabharata. So, you only have an kind of shouting out loud side of Draupadi. That is all you see, right? So, but then other than that, you do not have extra scenes or extra events, extra sequence that are being added into it, right? So Draupadi and Krishna in the epic have a conversation before the marriage to Pandavas about how is it possible for her to marry five men and be their wife, right? To which Krishna replies, "It is something the world has never seen." Right? So he agrees that it is something new, something the world has never seen. So it is also an injustice both to the tradition and her, because Hindu tradition, as you know, advocates monogamy, right? But Krishna refuses to make Draupadi's action justifiable to people in the future. The partiality towards women is a recurring theme in the Palace of Illusions, right? So you could not stop yourself from wondering why such a thing would happen. Maybe when I bring the character Krishna, you might be thinking, why? Okay, probably Karna or Krishna stood for dharma, or justice, right? Why would they let something like this happen to Draupadi? But on the other side, you also have this thing where Krishna is a guy, is a god, who thinks about dharma should be reinstated, justice should be given to people, but then the path in which dharma or justice is attained may not be, or necessarily need not be, justice itself, right? So partiality towards women through the manifestation of patriarchy, as you could see in your screens right now, is a recurring theme in the Palace of Illusions, and that is exactly the reason, or the primary reasons why Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni writes such a novel, right? So we put Draupadi in the center of all those, and then we are going to look at probably eight instances with which we will conclude the video lecture. So we are going to look at eight instances where Draupadi is put through in order to showcase that Draupadi undergoes patriarchy, right? Through partiality being imposed upon her, right? So we are going to look at the instances, and these are the eight instances I'm going to show you. I am sure you could see it on your screens. So the first one, we will start from the left hand side. We are looking at King Drupad, right? So this is one thing I already told you about. He is not happy with Draupadi's birth for one single reason, that she is a girl, right? A girl baby, right? So they walk out of this the Duiman, and you have Draupadi walking out of the fire that is made out of the yaga. Second reason is that King Draupad wanted a male heir to avenge Drona, which again I did tell you. I'm sorry about the spelling mistake that had happened there, right? And the third one is that she was not part of the deal when he asked for a male heir, right? So when he makes this yaga, he is asking to the gods only for a male heir. She is like an extra fitting in the colloquial manner, you would understand. So you could see that starting from her birth itself, you could see that there is partiality towards her, right? But if at all you know the story of Mahabharata, we could definitely say that even Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni would have noted it. We could definitely say that Draupadi was never worried about that. Meaning, she has been a strong lady. That much I could tell you, right? I could tell you very much. She has been a very strong lady. She went through all of these sufferings as something, she accepted it, right? She took responsibility for it. We see that both in the Palace of Illusion as well as in the epic Mahabharata, right? The second instance is the Swayamvaram. Draupadi marries Arjun half-heartedly against her will, right? You could see that very much in the Palace of Illusions as well, right? So whom does she fall in love with? She falls in love with Karna. She was expecting Karna to be in the Swayamvara, and she was expecting to marry Karna, right? So you know how it goes in the novel, right? So the reason is that she had definitely fallen. Draupadi had fallen for Karna, right? Now, this is the instance, right? So this is the second instance. Look at that. Even a princess, right? She was not able to marry a man whom she had fallen for, right? A Swayambara, we could think that, or we perceive it something where the women are given the right to choose their own husband, but then even Karna was not in the options as well, right? If you had to put it in a very colloquial, casual manner, he was not in the options as well, right? You also see later Draupadi herself chasing him away for a very, you couldn't call it silly, for a very particular reason. All right, so that is the second instance, and that is the second partiality that had been imposed upon her. Right. The third one is the marriage. Right. The Swayamvaram, you would remember, was actually won over by Arjuna. Right. Arjuna won over the hands of Draupadi in the Swayamvaram. Right. But then she was made to marry the Pandavas. Right. So it was not it was casually mentioned in the Mahabharata epic and also in the Palace of Illusions, right? I'm sorry, in the Mahabharata epic it's not casually mentioned, but in the Palace of Illusions it is casually mentioned, where you see Kunti praying, and you have Nakula running inside, and then Nakula says, Amma, you know something, Arjuna is very lucky, right? And then see what kind of donation we have got today while they are living in the forest, right? So that's what they call donation, right? So they have been, you could say, they're begging for alms, they are looking for alms elsewhere, right? நாங்க தானமா என்ன கொண்டு வந்திருக்கோம், right? What have we brought as donation, right? Kunti, before opening her eyes, she thinks that it is an object, right? And that's something very crucial, right? That's very relevant. It is going to reoccur again and again in the story, both the epic and the story, the Palace of Illusions as well, right? So without opening her eyes, Kunti actually thinks that it is some object, some food item, and hence she says, whatever it is, my sons should not find, because Nakula, in a sarcastic manner, says, among the five of us, Arjuna is the most luckiest because he has got this donation, right? That's what Nakula says. But then Kunti, since she is not opening her eyes, she had not opened her eyes. She thinks that it might probably bring discrimination between the siblings. Shows, he says, whatever it is, share it within the five of you, right? So in those ages during Mahabharata age, it was considered that whatever the mom says, it would be done, right? Funny, right? Yes. Okay. Right. Okay. The fourth instance is Vyasa's dictum, right? This is something you see in the novel where Draupadi very staunchly defends, or tries to voice against it, right? So what is the Vyasa's dictum, right? So if at all you have read the novel, you would have understood the kind of things Vyasa, after the marriage is performed between the Pandavas and Draupadi, you have a dictum that is being put forward to them, and they were made to promise on the dictum itself, right? Right. So what's the dictum? Draupadi can spend time with only one husband at a time, right? So the time period to spend with each husband is 1 year, right? And after each year, Draupadi's virginity will be retained, right? Now, in the Mahabharata, you might get a little misunderstanding, but then I'm not trying to support it, right? There's no idea of supporting it. But then in the Mahabharata, Vyasa comes up with this dictum, thinking that if at all the husbands are together, the five of them, right? The Pandavas are together with Draupadi at the same time, See, they are royal princes, right? You are a royal princess, right? The five of them, the Pandavas, right? So when a baby is born, Vyasa and others, right? So you understand from the first instance how much a male hair is important, and then the male hair should be born properly, legitimately, right? So there shouldn't be any problem, right? See, commoners didn't have this problem, right? People who ruled, right, the Kshatriyas, so as to say, they had these problems. They had separate, inscriptions written, right? And then they thought that this is not justice, right? So things like that. So in that order, if at all Draupadi spends more time with, spends time with all the five husbands at the same time, similar time, right? It could be a problem when the baby is born, right? It would be tough for them to find out whose baby that is, right? So at least that is the kind of justification Mahabharata is trying to give us, and that is why Vyasa comes up with this dictum that uh, Draupadi is supposed to spend 1 year with one particular husband, and then each year the virginity will be retained, right? So that is the fourth instance we have looked at, right? And then we have the gamble itself, right? Uh, would it is it acceptable to think that Draupadi can be waged as a bet? It's a big question mark, but then that is the thing that happens, right? Now, why can Draupadi not be waged as a bet? Because in this particular instance, she is treated like a property, money, wealth, cattle that could be transferred like she is some object, right? Now, where does this idea come from? Even Manusmriti says that, which is we could say a part of Hindu philosophy, Hindu Vedic text called the Manusmriti. Even that advocates that your wife is the property of a husband, right? And that is why you could see that in the gamble, Yudhishthir, right, the elder of the Pandavas, treat her like a property, right? Okay, so then you have the sixth instance, right? It is about Yudhishthir, the rightful, right? So that is a question you would have found it in the novel The Palace of Illusions itself. Draupadi is heard to be asking this question, right? She is asking a logical question where Yudhishthira wages himself and his brothers, the other four Pandavas, as slaves, right? When it goes round after rounds, right? Here during the gamble, you see that Yudhishthir is waging himself as a bet, and then he agrees that he will be the winner's slave for a particular point of time, right? So when he loses that particular bet, Yudhishthir and the Pandavas, the rest of the Pandavas, they become slaves, right? But then now Draupadi is asking the question, how can a slave wage Draupadi? Right? Meaning, after Yudhishthira has become a slave, how dare he wage Draupadi, the princess, as a bet itself, right? It's a very valid question we could come across in the Palace of Illusions, right? The seventh instance, we have kind of very casually during the introduction we have seen this, right? The wife to five instance, right? Now you do understand that it is not mm, Hindu philosophy, or at least many of the civilizations all over the world take monogamy as a right, monogamy as the just thing to do, except very few, right? Except very few uh, institutions, right? Religious institutions, you could say. Other than that, most other religious institutions, most other civilizations, they look at monogamy as the just thing to do, right? Now, as a part of the plan, which, let's say, Vyasa had made this plan, right? Because he has to write Mahabharata in such a manner that at the end virtue is rewarded and vice is being punished, right? you know in order to do that, you see that Draupadi is being used as a gamble, literally and metaphorically as well, right? For the single reason that Draupadi, through the ages, right, even today, right, you could kind of understand that the word Panjali is is smeared like it is a polluted term, right? You know what I mean, right? So the word Panjali itself is seen as a polluted word, right? Where girl babies may not be named Panjali or Draupadi, right? So that's the way it is. So Draupadi has to undergo ridicule throughout history, right? And that is kind of it's technically not a curse, but then in reality it is a curse, right? So that's the curse, and she has to undergo ridicule throughout history, right? But then the other side is that Pandavas took other wives, right? Each of the Pandavas took other wives, right? So you have Arjuna taking Shubhatra as wife, right? You have Bhima taking Hidimba as a wife, right? The others I'm not very sure about, right? May probably you would know better than me, right? Are they being ridiculed for taking other wives? No, they are not, right? Now, on one side, monogamy is frowned upon. When a girl does it, when a woman does it, it says as a blot throughout history. But then when a man does it, it does not, right? So the last one, right? And then I have named it the restraining order, right? So you have the restraint in the beginning of the novel itself, at least in the fifth or the sixth chapter, you have this restraining order made by Krishna to Draupadi, right? So what is the first restraint? Restrain from asking a question, right? And what is the question she asks? She asks about the birth of Karna, right? Or in other words, she's trying to ask whether Karna is a legitimate child, right? Or in other words, whether he is a Kshatriya, right? Now, it is because of this question you see later in life that Karna, although a just man he is never able to help Draupadi when there is a problem to her, right? When there arises a problem to her, right? So that is why when after the gamble is over, when the Duchadanan and Duryodhanan tried to shame publicly Draupadi, she was not. She looks with sorry eyes or saddened eyes towards Karna, but then Karna turns away, and that is why you see Draupadi calling out Krishna's name, not Karna's name, right? So the second restraining order is that restrain from laughing at persons while it happens or at the peak of their existence, and this happens at the Palace of Illusions. You see, you could have observed that Duryodhana walks into an illusionary pond and then he wets himself, and then Draupadi is standing there and observing out out into the palace. Right, she's looking at Duryodhana falling down and wetting himself. So you have Draupadi forgetting the second restraining order, like in the first one. She laughs loudly, right? So Karna and Duryodhana sees this as well, right? And these are the things one after the other they lead to the gambling situation where they shame whom Draupadi, right? So that's the thing. The third restraining order. Restrained from cursing while put to shame like never before, and that is the place where she gets publicly shamed, right? So you could, somehow come into an understanding that why retelling of the Mahabharata, the epic, is necessary as a whole from the point of view of Draupadi. The story might seem like justice for Draupadi or against Draupadi, depending on the side one takes, right? And like there are not just two sides, there are more than two sides, there are at least more than one sides, right? But then as a conclusion to this video, I'm trying to give you a postmodern insight into it. But a postmodern insight would enable you to question the meaning of justice itself, right? So, if at all you are aware of it, uh, these words of order, right? The concrete meaning of words like order, justice, truth. They do not have a single meaning in postmodern conversation, right? So, a postmodern insight would enable you to question the meaning of justice because the justice as exemplified in Manusmriti is partial, right? That you could very much see, and you could also, I could also illustrate to you with this example I'm going to give you now. Let's say in the Vedic age, a Sudra is one who belongs to the lowest class of the people living in that particular age, right? So you have the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and the Sudras. The Brahmins being the priest class, the Kshatriyas being the warrior class, the Vaishyas being the merchant class, right? And the Sudras being the commoners, right? So you could also say that this kind of existed in every other civilization, but then we have our own unique system in India, right? So let's say in the Vedic age, a Sudra accidentally kills a Brahmin, right? So you could say that one is in the fourth tier, one is the top tier, right? A Sudra accidentally killing a Brahmin would be sentenced to death, but a Brahmin accidentally killing a Sudra has to only save a strand of hair from his head, right? One could observe the way in which justice is not perceived in the same manner across classes, right? Across classes, right? So, Brahmin between Brahmin and Kshatriya, there's a different set of justice. Between Kshatriya and Vaishya, there's a different set of justice, and between Vaishya and Sudra, there's a different set of justice, and between a Sudra and the Brahmin, there's a different set of justice. Like I told you, this pattern have been observed in almost all advanced civilizations we know so far, right? For example, in the Babylonian Empire, 3750 years back, the elite devised a code popularly known as the Hammurabi Code. You might have very much heard it in your secondary classes when you did history, right? So this is how it looks. So there is a comparison between civilizations. It's on your screen right now. Look at the Hammurabi Code, which is on the left side, right? I have taken this quote from this book called Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. It's a very good read. You should try, if you're trying to uh, have a good time with any book for that matter, right? And it's a very slow read. If you have to have a good time, read this book, Sapiens. You could find it online, I guess, by Yuval Noah Harari, right? So, Yuval Noah Harari had quoted this sentence from the Hammurabi Code. So look at the quote. If a superior man should blind the eye of another superior man, they shall blind his eye. Right? So if a superior man blinds another superior man's eye, the one who committed will also has to lose his eye. Right? But look at the second Hammurabi Code. If a superior man blind the eye of a commoner or break the bone of a commoner, he shall weigh and deliver 60 shekels of silver, right? Don't you see there is a connection between the Vedic age Manusmriti and the Hammurabi Code? And this is how justice is perceived, right? So, do you think whether it is the Mahabharata period or the present time, do you think justice is just? Justice is not just. Thank you for watching.